Welcome to the Panic Room, where we talk about all things panic-inducing. I am the Queen of Panic. Warning, some episodes may contain content that may be disturbing to others. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let the games begin.
So this happened a few months ago. My female 21 boyfriend, male 22, went on a short trip with his friends. The original plan was for them to go on this poker cruise, but this got canceled because the boat didn't have a place to harbor or something like that. The boat would have gone to Norway. So my boyfriend and his friends, 4 other friends, decided to drive to the Czech Republic instead. God knows why. I only found out about this when they were already on their way. All they did was play poker in different places, one of them being King's Casino. He loved that place, by the way, and it really did look beautiful from the photos. Anyways, their way back is actually when something terrifying happened. It happened on the drive back when they were on the highway in Germany. In the car was my boyfriend and 2 of his friends. The others were in a different car and left earlier. After quite the drive, they needed to take a piss. They decided to stop at this abandoned-looking place where a lot of truck drivers stopped. It did give them a creepy bad vibe, but they really needed to go, so they still decided to stop there, something they'd regret very much. So picture this, an abandoned-looking place with a lot of trucks, presumably with the truck drivers in there asleep, with a dark forest stretching beyond view in the middle of the night. Quite creepy. So my boyfriend and his friends arrived there and they got out to take a piss. While walking, one of his friends made a joke about how it is such a typical place for a murder to happen. It did make them feel a bit uneasy, but they still laughed it off. At some point they found a good place to piss. It wasn't far from their car. After a minute or so, one of them suddenly says, "Someone is coming." My boyfriend and the other friend obviously freaked out a bit, but thought it was a joke, until they heard footsteps running towards them. It was approaching fast as well. Someone was full on sprinting towards them. Once they heard that, they all started running for their lives toward the car and frantically got in. They sped out of there as fast as possible. My boyfriend and the friend who wasn't driving were trying to see if they could see who it was, but it was too dark to see anything at all. So they never knew who charged at them that night. This really freaked out my boyfriend so much that he couldn't sleep when he got to my place. Along the way, he dropped off his friends. When he told me this story, it really creeped me out as well, as if I went through that. Funny enough, this was also the time I watched all Mr. Ballen's videos about people who went to places they shouldn't have, and videos about the missing 401. So all I could think about were the horrible things that could have happened to him if they didn't get out of there safely. I also got mad at him, telling him, "Do you want to become a Mr. Ballen video?" And, "Do you want to become an unsolved mystery?" I was just so scared for him. We can laugh about it now, but then it freaked both of us out a lot. So this is my first time writing on here, and please bear with me because I'm on a small device and not the best storyteller. A little backstory. This happened when my now husband and I were moving from the east to west coast of the US, about 5 years ago. I was 21 at the time. This had been our second time making this trip, and this one was just to pick up a few last things and grab our 2 dogs. At this point, we were just trying to make good time since we were tired of being on the road and would only stop for food and restroom breaks. So we weren't strangers to rest stops at odd hours of the day. I can't remember what state this happened in because we do a lot of traveling and rest stops have all blurred together over the years. Anyways, my husband had been driving for a while and it was time to switch off, walk the dogs, and stretch our legs. So we pull into a rest stop around 3 or 4 a.m. There was only one other vehicle in the lot, most likely someone sleeping inside of it, and not that many truckers in the area. So the rest stop was fairly empty. I jump out of the car and let my husband know I'm going to run to the restroom before I let the dogs out. Well, I run in. He is going to hang out by the car to have a smoke and keep an eye on our dogs. However, we parked our car by the dog area, and to get to the restrooms you had to walk over this hill, and you couldn't see the restrooms from our car. Being late at night, my husband decided to walk most of the way with me to make sure I got there okay. I wasn't worried, but didn't mind the extra comfort of having him there. I finished up in the restroom and came out to walk the dogs and let my husband take his restroom break. Even though it's late and I feel a bit cut off from the lighted area of the rest stop, I wasn't worried. I'm small, 5'2", and don't weigh much, but my dogs are German Shepherd mixes and very protective of me. Plus, I was taught self-defense at a young age and feel capable of defending myself if the time came. So I'm walking my dogs and letting them do their business. I noticed that one of the semi-trucks that had been sitting on the far side of the stop starts up and starts slowly driving in my direction. Now, this doesn't seem worrisome to me, because they are on the trucker side and I assume heading to the exit to get back on the highway. So I grab 2 doggy bags, clean up after my dogs, and start heading to the trash can. As I'm walking, I'm suddenly blinded by bright headlights. I look in the direction of the lights and see that the semi that I thought was leaving pulled up as close to the truck lot and car lot side as possible, and now their brights aimed directly at me. Pissed off that someone was blinding me with their brights, I quickly toss the poop bags away and start walking back to my car. As I'm walking away, the dude starts flashing me his lights over and over again. I'm almost to my car and I'm just wondering if I'm missing something and becoming more and more irritated. He starts creeping his truck in my direction again while flashing his lights. My dogs sensed my irritation and they immediately go on alert and stare in the trucker's direction. I finally made my way to my car and the guy is still flashing his lights while stopping his truck in my direction again. I don't scare easily, so I decide to stand there and glare in his direction. Then he finally stops flashing his lights. Good. I assume he's done and start getting my keys out to unlock the car. Suddenly, my dogs stiffen behind me. Their hackles raise and they begin to growl. I hear the sound of a door opening and turn back in the trucker's direction. I see his door is now opened and I see a foot starting to exit the truck. I'm sitting there thinking this guy is a complete idiot, when at this point my husband shows up and wraps his arm around me while flipping the trucker off. The trucker's foot disappeared back into his truck. He shut his door and leaves the rest stop pretty fast. I told my husband about him flashing his lights, and he explains to me that the truckers use this method to flag women down at rest stops for sex. I was grossed out. I'm guessing he thought I was alone because of how the rest stop was set up. However, I was in no way dressed like someone interested in random sex at a rest stop. I was wearing layers because it was cold, and driving a newer car. Plus, what idiot thinks it's a good idea to try to approach someone with 2 huge dogs? Although I was never scared during the whole thing, I do think the whole situation was creepy, because the guy was obviously not quite there and was acting pretty abrasive. I have many more stories that I may put on here that are creepier, but longer, and I'm not sure how my writing style will be received. Side note, I'm not saying all truckers behave like this guy. We've met many nice truckers on the road. Me and my family like to go on road trips a lot, and when we do, I take my dog. She is a little chihuahua and needs to go pee often. So when the rest of the family goes into the gas station or truck stop, I go to the nearest grassy spot and let my dog walk around and do her business. One time we were in New Mexico at a truck stop later at night, and there's a couple cars, so it wasn't dead empty, which is nice. My family went into the building to go to the bathroom or whatever, and I was outside alone walking over to the grass with my baby. When a man was pulling up in an RV, he saw me get out of the car and my family leave into the building. He knew I was alone out there, and as I was crossing the parking lot to the grass, I had to pass his RV, which was between my car and the grass. It was also blocking any view my parents had of me from inside. He yelled,
"Hey, come here to me!"
from inside with his head peeking out of the driver's side window, and my dumb ass went over to him. He asked me to see how far his gas thing was from the pump, and as I was helping, he tried to ask me where I was heading and my age. It was creepy questions that I thought were innocent coming from an older man. Then he asked me if I wanted to come inside, the RV, to get some cold water for helping him. I politely said no, and tried to go over to the grass, because my girl still didn't get to go yet. I really gave the guy no option, and just walked away to the grass. My family was still inside when he finished, then he pulled over to the grass where I was and tried to talk to me more, and was asking me weird questions. I was very spooked because he was blocking my way to the car with his RV. I just told him, "Have a good day," and walked away when I saw that my family came outside. I kinda jogged/sprinted away with my dog in my arms when I saw my family. I told him what happened as we all got in the car, but he was already long gone by the time I could explain myself. I got yelled at for being too nice to a stranger, and now not allowed to go let the dog go to the grass alone. Good thing nothing happened to me, but I'm still spooked from the experience. If I was alone, that man could have easily snatched me, because I'm freaking light and could just be thrown over a man's shoulder easily. Gotta be careful out there, people. So this happened when I was 17. I worked briefly at a truck stop. I literally worked there a week and a half. So the only person I got to know while I was there was the janitor. We had talked on breaks and he smoked with me once. He was a shorter guy, probably 5'5", and had a smaller frame, and he was probably in his late 40s. He has scraggly down hair to his shoulders and thinning on top. Not that it matters. I'm just painting a picture. I'm a big girl, but I'm tall, and built like a brick house. If anyone was the opposing one, it was me. I never at any point thought of him as scary or anything, just thought he was a nice older guy. So after I stopped working there, a few weeks had passed, and I was fueling up my car, and he came up to me and we talked, and he told me about this great weed he had, and if I gave him a ride home after work. I didn't think anything of it and drove him home. He rolled a joint and made me a drink that was about 2 fingers full, but we didn't have a chaser, so I only took one small sip. Well, he put his hand on my leg, and trying to put my hand on him. And at that moment, my head started swimming, and I got this gut feeling. It was fear. Pure fear. I felt faint, and shot up off the couch and headed for the door. He did everything but physically stop me from leaving. I can't remember exactly what he said, but I moved him from in front of the door and left. When I had gotten there, it had already been snowing all day, and there wasn't a car on the road. I got about a mile from his apartment, and I have no clue what happened after that. I woke up the next morning in my basement, on the cold concrete floor. I actually saw him again after I had met my husband, and he angrily stomped up to me and said,
"I thought you were gay."
And I was so scared, guys. I must have told him I was gay or something, I don't know, but I'm 39 and I still think about this situation from time to time. It happened last night about 7:30 p.m., so it was already dark outside. My friend and I, both 22 female, were about 2/3 of the way through our 16-hour drive back home from Salem, Massachusetts. I really needed to pee, so we stopped at a rest area in eastern Pennsylvania. I usually avoid rest areas, but it looked nice enough, and I didn't have any bad feelings about it. We walked in, and the only other person inside was an older man, probably mid to late 60s, standing by the vending machines talking on his phone. We went past him across the room and into the bathroom. We were there for a good 10 to 15 minutes because she wanted to pop a couple pimples. When we were finished, we walked back out laughing at something one of us had said. The man was still standing there, but he wasn't on the phone anymore. He stared and smiled at us, in what we both thought was a creepy way, the entire time it took us to get to the door to exit the rest area. We started running back to my car, which was about 6 parking spaces from the door. Still laughing, but also a little freaked out. We were about to get in the car when I remembered my boyfriend wanted us to check my oil on the way home, since it was such a long drive, and my car had been having some slight issues. I considered waiting until the next time we needed to stop for gas, but decided to just get it over with. As I was checking the oil, the man from before, along with another slightly younger man we hadn't seen, left the rest area. They both started walking towards us, with the younger one coming head on the sidewalk and the older one kind of going diagonally towards the driver's side of the car. This was odd, because there were no other cars past mine. The only cars I could see were on the other side of the lot, closer to the building. My friend and I looked at each other and bolted for the car doors. But then I realized I was still holding the dipstick, so I cursed, and we had to run back over and lift the hood back up. Then we hurried into the car and locked the doors, just as they were approaching. We watched as the younger man walked slowly past the car, staring in at us with a blank face. He continued walking down the sidewalk for a while, before pausing for a second and turning around to come back towards us. The older man, still just smiling, got within a few feet of the driver's side door, then turned and walked past us to the other side of the parking lot. I backed out, and once I straightened the car and started pulling forward to leave the rest area, we saw he had moved to the middle of the road and was standing there with that same unnerving smile. But now he was motioning for us to stop. I drove past him because, no way. We watched in the mirrors as both men got into the cars on the other side of the parking lot closer to the building. We spent the next couple hours shaken up and babbling about what could have happened. I'm not sure what their intentions were, but there can't be any good reason to approach 2 women like that in a rest area. I tried telling myself maybe they were going to ask if I needed help with car troubles, but I was very clearly just checking the oil. And it doesn't make sense why the younger man would walk the complete opposite direction from his car and go so far down the sidewalk. So I'm really not sure.
Years ago, I was on my way to Minneapolis, Missouri. I was making the trip alone. I drove as much as I could handle, stopping only for gas and bathroom breaks. It was late at night, and I decided to call it quits when I stopped in this little nothing town called Rothesay. I checked into this little motel to regroup for the night and decided to bebop over to this 24-hour truck stop for some food. It wasn't far, so I grabbed my coat out of my car and went over on foot. So some background about me. I have always been super cautious about stranger danger. My mom was into true crime and drilled it into me at any situation could be dangerous, so I needed to stay vigilant and be prepared in case of any sort of altercation with a creep. I always watch the people around me when I'm out and pay attention to what's going on. When this happened, I had pepper spray climbed into the inside breast pocket of my leather, and my stun gun, machete, and baton in my car just in case stuff like this incident were to ever go south. I also had 2 gas cans, jumper cables, vehicle fluids, etc. in my car in case of emergency. I felt okay with being by myself because of all of this. To anyone who saw me, I was an 18-year-old female traveling by myself in a dumpy '02 Ford Vic with out-of-state plates, and if they bothered to look into it specifically with the county number of a town with a population of 600 to 700. So to creeps with bad intentions, I obviously had potential of being a vulnerable target on which to pull some shit. I still was friendly with strangers and willing to help anyone in need, but this incident made me a bit leery about it from then on. I really feel like something awful would have went down if I had not seen the red flags and questioned the situation. I stopped putting myself out there like this after it happened. Anyway, while I was walking to that truck stop, I noticed a parked car with an open door and some dude just half sitting in it smoking a cigarette and messing with stuff in the car. I took note because he looked at me and kind of put off sketchy vibes. A lady maybe 30 years old comes out of the truck stop and approached me. She was a little off, like I'm fairly sure she was an addict and was high at the time. I was an addict once and I don't look down on them, so I greeted her kindly when she walked up to me and she said,
I'm stranded here and I need help. My car just died. I think I ran out of gas.
So I told her I'd be glad to help and offered to put 25 in the tank. And she said the car wasn't here, that it died on the road. I was like, oh, no problem. I always keep gas cans and jumper cables in case of something like this, so no worries. I could give her one of my gas cans to take gas back to it. She was like,
can I get a ride to my car?
So I asked where it was and she said,
no, not that far, I suppose. Would just be nice to get a ride. Will you take me to my car?
I told her I was actually about to head into the truck stop to get something to eat just now, but it would be no problem at all to let her take the gas can. She floundered and changed it too.
Well, actually, I'm not sure if it's out of gas. It could have just died because of the bad battery. You said you had cables, so would you go try to jumpstart my car?
Odd thing is, the whole time I was talking to her, she kept glancing over at the dude in the car. She seemed insistent that if I get in my car and take her somewhere. These things clicked, alarm bells went off in my mind, and I knew there was no way in hell I was giving this woman a ride anywhere. Like so many red flags, and at this point I felt like it was some sort of scam to maybe rob me or steal my car or something of the sort, just due to how sketchy she was being. And because she kept looking over at the guy in the car throughout this, I did wonder though if maybe she was afraid of the man for some reason. Maybe in a bad relationship and trying to get away from him. I made one last-ditch attempt on the off chance she really did need help, and I told her I'd let her use my phone if she wanted to call someone. But I wasn't going to give her a ride, with my excuse being I had just driven all the way from 2 states over, and I was going inside to get food. Honestly, I just felt weird about the whole thing, and didn't want to give her what she wanted. She 180'd so damn fast, she started screaming and swearing at me, saying all kinds of terrible stuff, and making a huge scene, so I threw up my hands and said, fine, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And I walked away from her and went inside the truck stop. The woman hung around the lot a few minutes, and as I was eating my caramel roll, I saw her leaving the lot with the man who had been sitting in the car smoking a cigarette. I was certain that it was a ruse, because why bother if she could just have went with him? I mentioned it to the lady inside, and she said she saw the strange lady show up there with the man she left with, and she thought it was also super creepy/unsettling, and it was very likely they had bad intentions. I genuinely feel like she was right, and my gut feeling was right. I feel like the point was for the strange woman to talk me into giving her a ride, and direct me somewhere, and for the man to follow in his car for evil reasons. I've had other stuff like that happen when I'm traveling, but nothing as extremely off-putting and straight creepy as the time I stopped in Rothsay.
My family and I were driving from Ohio to Wyoming one holiday season to visit family about 10 years ago. Due to storms farther north, we traveled straight west instead of northwest at first, and split the trip at Omaha, staying the night before heading up through Nebraska into South Dakota. Once we were far enough north, we turned west onto I-90. At that point, it had been over an hour since we saw anywhere that might have a public restroom, and we were on state routes, so no rest areas. Those of you who've traveled with a young kid know that's close to their bladder/boredom's limit, and our daughter was begging to stop somewhere to pee. South Dakota was similarly deserted, or even worse as we headed west. Finally, we reached a desperately needed rest stop as my, at the time, 5-year-old and I both needed to pee by then. Just as we pulled in, the truck that had been following us for a while pulled in too. I didn't think too much of that at first until I started to open my door. My head was turned to the right, where the truck was parked a couple spots over. My eyes met the driver's, and I just shivered. He was a skinny white guy, straggly gray-brown beard, and dark eyes. I could see that he was wearing a dingy, dirty blue plaid shirt. He got out of his 90s brown and cream truck and started rummaging in the bed. I told my husband I didn't want to go into the rest stop alone because of that guy and the weird feeling that I got from him. He thought I was being a little silly, but agreed to come with us. At that point, the next stop was Wall, South Dakota, about 100 miles away according to the huge billboards we'd passed, advertising it. He figured he'd better empty his bladder, even though he didn't particularly feel the need. I grabbed our daughter, and we headed inside, followed by the guy who finished rummaging at his truck but wasn't carrying anything when I glanced back. My daughter and I did our business in the women's restroom, and head back out to the lobby. As I expected, my husband was already out there since he didn't have a small human to chaperone. The old guy was also in the tiny lobby area. He was just standing there staring at my husband. My husband rushed us back to our car. As we were buckling in, he locked the doors. Then he told me that the guy hadn't even gone into the restroom and was just standing in the lobby the whole time. He agreed with me that we might have just had a close call, and he was glad it hadn't just been me and our daughter in there. However, that's not the end of the story. Remember how I mentioned Wall, and that it was 100 miles away? Well, that was 100 miles of pretty empty landscape, but a decent number of turnoffs from the interstate. We didn't see the truck following us, and thought the whole episode was behind us. Except when we stopped in Wall to grab lunch and some road snacks, plus look around this homey but fun little tourist trap in the middle of nowhere, we saw the guy in the store, not even 20 feet from us. Same face, beard, dirty plaid shirt. Thankfully, we'd already eaten, so since he was staring at us again, we quickly paid for our snacks and trinkets and got the heck out of there. Thankfully, we didn't see him again, but I was seriously creeped out until we reached our relatives in Wyoming safely, with no other sight of that truck.
If you have any stories that you would like to see narrated here on the channel, please go into the subreddit and submit them there. The link is in the description. Also, we do have a Discord now. Thank you so much to Creepy Clown Girl for putting it together for us. You can come hang out with me and other narrators and get the party started, get spooky with us. That link is also in the description as well. And last but certainly not least, I wanted to introduce the King of Panic. We have a lot of brand new content coming soon with him in it. He is very talented. He does not have his own channel. He just kind of wants to be a part of this. So if you would like to hear from him once you start and you like his voice, stay tuned here. And as always, thank you for visiting the Panic Room. You have successfully made it to the next portion of your tour. Please stay tuned for your next prompt. Click the like button and subscribe to receive notifications for when the next portion of your tour is ready to join. Thank you for watching. Don't let the panic drown you.